Okay, I am going to I'm going to solve practice quiz 3. This is the one with the guy walking across the loading dock. And then I'll post this guy on YouTube. So let's see. First, before we even start, just so everybody knows, you should always do regular procedure, do all of the normal procedure we've done all semester long. And if there are relative clauses, you have to deal with that. This particular quiz is sort of targeting these verb-ing functions, but just because we're doing that doesn't mean you're ignoring everything else. All right, so let's dig in. So the professor found a condescending article that described proper walking techniques, and if you're interested in it, it's right there. And so I'm going to paste that guy, get the number out of there, copy that a couple times, probably make the final markup stuff go away. Oh, okay, so before I even start solving, I'm just going to bold that. So that's a restrictive relative pronoun, which means you have to split this in half. That is pointing directly to the left at the nearest noun and noun phrase. So article and a condescending article. So that's going to be your shared element. And okay, so the professor found a condescending article, and then the condescending article described proper walking techniques. All right, so I guess I'll need that later on when I do the whole final markup. So sentence 1, sentence 2 is that guy, sentence 1 is that guy. And clean this up. And okay, and then I'm just going to repaste these down below and then solve them one at a time. Oops. Okay, so the professor found a condescending article. Because that's me, so he is your subject, and he might find a condescending article. Main verb, so that's the only verb test you need. And the professor found it, and that's your object. And then mark all those guys up. And SVO, easy. Next, a condescending article described proper walking techniques. And so it, and I guess now that I'm thinking about it, just for good hygiene, starting with that clean guy, starting with this clean sentence before I start digging in. Okay, so a condescending article, it described proper walking techniques. That is that's your subject. A condescending article might describe proper walking techniques. That's your verb. And a condescending article described them. And them is clearly pointing at the techniques, right? So that's the object. And so this guy is the subject, verb, object. And that's SVO. All right, so after you've done your final, oh, wait, go over here. After you've done your regular procedure and you have what looks like a final markup, after you've labeled the main verb, we've done that. Do you see a verbing word without a verbing label? And go back over here, find ing. Okay, condescending article, walking. So we have two two of these verb-ing words that we're going to have to deal with. So I guess I should have made my template. So tests for, okay, so we're going to do test 1 and test 2A. That's 2A for the gerund test. Test 2B is the second gerund test, and then test 3 is the adjective participial verb adjective test, and we're going to need a couple of those. So copy. I'm assuming I'm going to have some more down here, so I'll just paste all of these guys. And okay, so we're going to have to do tests for condescending and tests for walking, and we'll see how things go. So the interesting thing is that, let's do this just because you know, I'm recording these videos to try to help people out. I'm not doing it the fast way. I'm doing it to try to cover all of my bases. You can see that condescending article occurs as an object, and it occurs again as a subject. So let's do both just so that we're sure that that it's behaving the same in both contexts. And oh, and also you saw how I didn't take the original sentence from up here. I'm doing the simple sentence split in half, so I don't have a restrictive relative clause possibly mucking things up. Okay, so the first question in the verb-ing flowchart, is there an auxiliary right before the verb-ing word? And no. Fail. And when you fail, keep asking questions. If you pass the test, then if you pass the test, that's the answer. And so the next test is and you have to pass both tests to be a gerund. Can you replace the verb-ing word and then stuff after it in the same structure? And you have to use the pronoun it. So the professor found, ignore there's a determiner right there. Do not select The professor found it is terrible. So that fails. Just so you know, if you had done this, had found it, you kind of, you screwed up on the determiner, just watch what happens down here. If you had mistakenly done this, mistakenly replaced the along with your pronoun, the professor found doing so is terrible. So even if you mess it up here, it's going to fail anyway if on the second gerund test. So the third test is ignore condescending. I like to delete it just so I can completely ignore it. And then look for a nearby noun, like the only one there is article. And so the professor found it. It is pointing at the article, not at condescending. And that passes because it's good grammar and it's faithful to the original. So, okay, so that means you're looking at a participial verb adjective for the condescending article. And like I said, let's go through these. Test 1, no auxiliary, fail. It fails just like before. Doing so, or even doing so, either way, it still fails, whichever version you do. And then if you ignore condescending, it. And so it's replacing the article, and then condescending is an adjective that goes along with it. So that guy passes, and the rest of these guys, they all fail. So, oops. Copy. Fail. 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 And then, okay, so test for walking, and walking only happens in the second sentence, proper walking techniques. So test 1. Is there an auxiliary right there? Nope. Fail. And test 2. Can you replace walking and then the stuff after walking with it? Proper it, is pretty bad. So fail. And this is, you don't have to do test 2B if you don't want to, because we've already failed number 2A. And then, just like always, ignore walking, and then proper techniques. Okay, proper techniques is replaceable with them, and that's the same object replacement that you did above, so that guy passes. And again, this is a participial verb adjective. So that means these two guys right here, just so we're in chronological order, I'm just going to paste them down. So this guy is condescending, and that will be a participial verb adjective. I'm going to grab that label, paste it right there, and paste it right there. So those are my two sentences, my two individual sentences. Now I've got to mark up the whole sentence. That is always a restrictive relative pronoun. And the professor found a condescending article. Paste. Described proper, so ignore the subject, because the subject in this sentence, the subject in this sentence is the that is the subject of the second part of the sentence. Proper walking techniques. All right, that is it for number 1. Next, choosing the wrong pair of shoes can hurt your feet. And all right, so choosing the wrong pair of shoes can hurt your feet. It can hurt your feet is the subject ID. And so you can see there's a determiner right there. Choosing the wrong pair of shoes. Choosing them, which is it's both grammatical somehow and kind of weird and to be announced. Choosing the wrong pair of them, that works. Of them, and that's a prepositional phrase ID. And can, that's looking like a modal. Let's switch it out for a known modal. Might hurt your feet. Choosing the wrong pair of shoes might hurt your feet equals verb ID. That's the modal swap version of that. And choosing the wrong pair of shoes can hurt them is the object of hurt. And if you want, this is not necessary. This is it's optional. If you want to do a do-so test, verb ID 2. If you want to do it, but optional. And all right, so mark that guy up. For the moment, I'm just gonna ignore. No, I am gonna mark that prepositional phrase. You have to mark the PP, but I'm gonna ignore the wrong pair for right now. And all of that is the subject. Can is a modal. Hurt is the main verb. Your feet, object, SVO. All right. After we've done the regular procedure, I do see a verbing word right there. Doesn't have a label on it, so let's copy that sentence. Tests for choosing. And no auxiliary here. equals fail. And test 2A. Select the verbing word. Select the verbing word. Everything else in that structure, if it's a subject or a noun or the object of a preposition, replace it with it. It can hurt your feet. That is what we did for the subject from before. So that is good grammar, faithful representation, pass. And next, same text with doing so. Doing so can hurt your feet, 100%. So test 3 is not applicable. That is a gerund. And so the next thing you do is mark that guy. So that is this right here is the minimum you have to do for the final markup of the main sentence. You could, if you want, totally optional, the wrong pair of shoes, that will be the object of that gerund, the verb part of the gerund, but you can leave it alone for the moment. So as you know, every time you have a gerund, you also have a verb that you have to analyze. And so you're going to do the analysis of gerund sentence, and choosing is the verb that we're working on. So go back to doing so. Whatever doing so replaced, choosing the wrong pair of shoes, so the whole subject, copy that. So you're doing a subject and an aux, and then you paste that. And so we'll do they are, fine. Okay, so that's the sentence. Paste it a couple times. They are choosing the wrong pair of shoes. They are doing so. You can ignore, because you supply the subject and the auxiliary, you can ignore the subject and aux IDs. You do have to do the doing so test, and they're doing so. They're choosing the wrong pair of shoes. So that's the verb main verb identification. And if you're wondering, I said this in a previous quiz, but I'll say it again. If you're thinking, I already did the doing so test on choosing the wrong pair of shoes. Yes, but you know what you can't do? They are it, and that's what happens when you have a gerund. Gerunds are simultaneously it nouns and also doing so verb phrases. This choosing the wrong pair of shoes down here, no longer a noun, so bad grammar. Okay, so choosing is the main verb, and choosing the wrong pair of shoes, that's replaceable with them or it. It? I don't know. One or the other. That's the object of the word to the left, which is a main verb. And so I think we mark it up. Here we go. And SVO. All right. So now we have choosing, and it's got a verb label on it, so we're done. Next, walking for exercise doesn't require driving to a distant location. And I said use my intuitive grammar. Walking for exercise doesn't require doing so. Where does that go? Oh, that it, yes, that it confirms that people actually say it. Fine. So, oops. Copy that. Okay, walking for exercise doesn't require driving to a distant location. So it doesn't require subject ID. Walking for exercise, walking for it. Kind of weird. Ugh. And so, but for is definitely, for is a preposition. Exercise sounds nouny, so walking for the exercise, you can't put a determiner in front of it, and you can't do a plural. Exercises, neither of those noun tests work. So let's look in the dictionary. Is exercise a possible noun? So it's going to be a verb. Oh, okay, it is a noun and a transitive verb and intransitive verb. And so, oh, look at that, as a noun, for exercise, the first example. So even though it doesn't, exercise doesn't conform to the regular noun tests, it is a potential noun. And so, where are we? Right there. And now that I go back to walking for that purpose, yeah, fine. So PPID. And alternatively, for plus exercise equals prep plus noun equals prepositional phrase, however you want to do your math. Okay, so I'm going to mark up, that's the subject. Walking for exercise is the subject, and for exercise is a prepositional phrase. Okay, next. Walking for exercise doesn't require driving to a distant location. So I'm seeing this. That's slightly tricky. Let's open expanding the main verb. And don't we have in here? Yes, didn't she show them her new house? Is templates to copy and paste. If you have N''T, if you have not, I mean, everybody already knows this, not is an adverb. If you have N''T, that is an adverb. So I'm going to grab that guy and paste it right there. Okay, that clears things up. Doesn't require driving to a distant location. Paste that. So do, back to the where is it? Here we go. Does and do are possible modal verbs. I'm sorry, auxiliary verbs. Have, be, and do. So have, be, do, negation with do, didn't she show them? And then there's this caution down here. Caution that modals interact, like modals interact means you can insert a modal in front of have and be as auxiliary verbs. But modals do not occur simultaneously with do as an auxiliary. Do, did, let's put in does. Do, does, did as auxiliary. So you can't do like might, does not, whatever that sentence says. So you can replace did or does with a modal to demonstrate that that do is a verb type. It's not a modal. It's an auxiliary. So let's go back. Okay, so let's just replace this guy. Walking for exercise might not require driving to a distant location. So do swap for modal. Label it as some sort of a verb identification. The other test you can do is does not do so. The regular do so test, verb ID number 2, but that's optional. Because you've already, above, might is interacting with require above. And, okay, so does is an auxiliary. Require is our main verb. And I'll leave that right there for the moment. Walking for exercise doesn't require it. Doesn't require it. Good. Object. It is the object of the word to the left, and that's require. That's a verb. So that is your object, and oh. And next, driving to it. Walking for exercise doesn't require driving to it. And that is your prepositional phrase identification. PP. Okay, so to a distant location. I'm also noticing right here you can do doesn't require doing. Remember the hint up there to use my intuitive grammar. Walking for exercise doesn't require doing so. But that's going to be one of the tests down below, so I'm just going to ignore it for now. So for right now, we can see we have SVO, and then we still have to deal with walking and driving. So we're going to need two of these. Tests for walking and driving. Okay, did I copy that? No. Okay, number 1. Is there an auxiliary right there? Nope. Fail. Test 2. Can I take walking and then anything connected, the rest of the subject, replace it with it? Yes. Pass. And then the same question, the same text with doing so. Doing so doesn't require driving to a distant location. Absolutely. And that means you don't need that. And so that's walking. Walking is a gerund. For exercise is going to be the rest of that sentence. So you need a sentence for gerund walking. And remember, doing so replaced walking for exercise. How do you analyze the gerund sentence? You need a subject, aux, paste, the contents of the doing so test. And so whoever is, he is walking for exercise. Fine. He is doing so. That's the main verb ID. And he is walking for it. He is walking for it. Ooh, boy, it's weird. But exercise is a person, place, or thing, and for is a preposition. Guess I could have said that right up there. Exercise is definitely a person, place, or thing. And even though exercise doesn't it doesn't conform with the typical noun phrase tests. And I think we're ready to mark these guys up. That's an auxiliary, main verb, and for exercise is a PP already, and so that's SV plus PP. All right, tests for driving. Go back to the original sentence. Test for driving. There's no auxiliary right here. Ignore this auxiliary because that's 2 words over. The auxiliary has to be right next to your verbing structure. So that fails. 2A. Can you replace the verbing structure, all of the other stuff inside, connected stuff inside the object, with it? Doesn't require it. 100%. And pass. Next is the same text with doing so. Doesn't require doing so. That's the hint that I gave you before. and pass equals gerund. And that means we don't need that test, but we need a sentence for the gerund, driving, and walking for exercise. Doing so. Doing so. Driving to a distant location. That's the test that's the text that doing so replaced. So you put in a subject, aux, and paste. So they are driving to a distant location. Fine. And they are doing so. Verb ID. And they are driving to it. PP ID, just like before. And so they, subject, are aux, driving verb to a distant location, SV plus PP. Okay, back to the original sentence, and then plug in your gerund. So the final markup for main sentence is just what we had before, and then we have to mark walking as a gerund and driving as a gerund. And both of those guys just have prepositional phrases attached. So that is it, and still SVO just like before. All right, here we go. Wearing running shoes. That's interesting. Something's going on because you have two adjacent verb-ing structures. So wearing running shoes might help you to walk on irregular surfaces. So let's paste. All right, so wearing, I think the most natural thing people would say, wearing them might help you to walk on irregular surfaces. And so object of wearing, so that's got to be a gerund. So that's for later on. Note to self for later on. For this current sentence, it doesn't matter. All right, so the subject, it might help you to walk on irregular surfaces. Good. Might, that's a modal, so could. So you could either swap it out, you can either do a modal swap, or you can just delete it. Wearing running shoes helps you to walk on irregular surfaces. And then you can do modal delete. One or the other, you don't have to do both. So that's your verb ID. Okay, so wearing running shoes, subject, might is a modal, and help is the main verb. You is a pronoun. So if you have a pronoun, you is both a subject and an object pronoun, but in this situation, in the middle of a sentence, right after a main verb, that's got to be the object of that verb just to the left. And you don't have to do a different object ID because it's already an object. And to walk on irregular surfaces, wearing running shoes might help you to do so. Equals infinitive verb phrase. Okay, I believe we can mark all of this up. Help you to walk on irregular surfaces, infinitive verb phrase. SVO plus inv. Okay, so now we need two sets of tests, one for wearing and one for running. So let's take the first one first. Test 1, is there an auxiliary right here? Nope. Fail. And select wearing, and everything else inside the subject, replace it with it. It might help you to walk on irregular surfaces. Looking good. So that passes. And same text, but do the same thing with doing so. Might help you to walk on irregular surfaces. Definitely. Pass. That's a gerund. And I don't need that. So test for running. Is there an auxiliary right here before running? No. Fail. Select running and anything after the verbing structure that's inside the subject structure and replace it with it. Wearing it. That's good grammar. Wearing it might help you to walk on irregular surfaces, but before shoes, remember them? So something is off. So wearing it, maybe? Kind of weird. Do the next one. The same text, running shoes, with doing so. Wearing doing so is terrible. Fail. And test 3, ignore running. Wearing shoes should help you to walk on irregular surfaces. So wearing shoes, it, and it is wearing shoes, not anything to do with running. So that passes, and that is a participial verb adjective. So that means running is an adjective and wearing is a gerund. So the final markup for the main sentence, this is a gerund, and this is a participial verb. Oh, sorry, I screwed up. Running is a participial verb adjective, and then wearing running shoes is going to be shoes. You can ignore, because the issue with the sentence that you'll see in just a minute, this is the alternative final markup. So remember wearing them might help you to walk on irregular surfaces. Them is an object pronoun, always. Them is the object of wearing. So if you want, you don't have to do this, but if you want, you can put your object label inside your subject. That's alternative, optional, final markup for the main sentence. At a minimum, you need that. What you do have to do, though, remember, is whenever you have a gerund, you got to take the contents of wearing running shoes and make a gerund sentence. And you're going to supply a subject, aux, paste. Whatever suits you. So they are wearing running shoes. Fine. And they are doing so. And let's see, they're doing so. That's your main verb identification. And they're wearing them, object ID. And I believe we're ready to mark this all up. Those two, you guys don't, those two, the subject and the auxiliary, you do not have to test because you are supplying them. Wearing is the main verb. Running shoes is the object, SVO. Okay, so next is we have, we got to go back to the verbing test. And do you see, after you've labeled the main verb, do you see a verbing word without a verb label on it? Unfortunately, yes, running. So we have to do tests for running again. I should have waited because then I could have plugged in running from before. So test 1, test 2A, test 2B, test 3. But the tests for running, they're gonna turn out exactly the same results with a different sentence. So okay, so there is no auxiliary right here. No auxiliary before that, so that fails. And can I take the verbing word and the other stuff? This is the gerund test. Take the verbing word and replace it with it and all the other stuff. They are wearing it. Good grammar, but shoes are them. Hi, kitty. You coming over? So that, let's just say it sounds okay, but fail, because it's the wrong pronoun. And then this one, doing so, they're wearing doing so is terrible. Okay, and so the adjective test, ignore running and replace shoes with a pronoun. They're wearing them, totally. So that's pass. So that's a participial verb adjective. And so that means we are looking at SVO. And that guy is a participial verb adjective there also. Okay. Whew. So that's how you solve that. And I hope that helps.